I'm Brad Wells of SB Nation and Stand Be Blue, and we're talking about the top free agents that are going to be hitting the market in 2013. Now, the key date to remember with NFL free agency is March 12th. That is when the new league year begins, and that is when your team can begin to sign free agents, especially if your team has cap space. Now, the three teams that have the most cap space going into the 2013 offseason are the Cincinnati Bengals at number one. They've got about $55 million in cap space, and that's scary because Cincinnati made the playoffs last year. Number two is the Cleveland Browns with about $48 million in cap space, and number three is the Miami Dolphins with about $46 million. Number four is the Indianapolis Colts, who also made the playoffs along with the Bengals. They have about $43 million in cap space. So those teams are going to probably be the big players in free agency. And even though those teams, some of them went to the playoffs, their rosters have lots of holes. They're not going to be the only teams that are going to be big players in free agency. Speaking of the free agents, these are the guys that I think are at the top of the list when it comes to guys hitting the open market. We're going to start at the wide receiver position, because wide receiver going into free agency I think is the deepest. And the number one, the best unrestricted free agent wide receiver to hit the market right now, in my opinion, is Wes Welker of the New England Patriots. Since Welker became a Patriot in 2007, he has averaged 112 receptions a season. 112 a season. That's his average. An extremely good receiver would love to have that in one season. Welker's had it in 6. That's what he's averaged in 6 seasons with the New England Patriots. He and the Patriots couldn't really work out a contract over the summer. There's a little bit of bad blood between the two of them. Now it looks like Welker's going to hit free agency, and when he hits free agency, he's going to ask for a lot of money, and I think some teams are going to give it to him. I think the two teams that would best be great fits for Wes Welker, number one would be the Cincinnati Bengals. He would own in Jay Gruden's offense in Cincinnati. He'd be a wonderful target for Andy Dalton. Great complementary player to A.J. Green. So you put Wes Welker in Cincinnati, that becomes a very scary offense. It's already a pretty scary offense. It becomes even scarier with Welker. And I think another team to consider is the Indianapolis Colts. They've got the cap space, and they're going to be running a different offense this upcoming year with Pep Hamilton as their offensive coordinator. Wes Welker would do very well as Andrew Luck's slot receiver. So it'll be interesting to see where Welker goes. Another receiver to consider here is Greg Jennings of the Green Bay Packers. Now, the buyer beware with Jennings is the last 2 seasons he's missed several games. He's missed 11 games in 2 years, and he really peaked in 2010 when the Packers won the Super Bowl, caught over 1,200 yards of balls, 12 touchdowns. Problem is, it was 2 seasons ago. You don't really quite know if Jennings is going to be healthy enough to continue on that pace. However, if he is healthy enough, he is an absolutely dynamic wide receiver and knows the West Coast offense very, very well. Teams to consider with him are the Kansas City Chiefs. They're switching to a West Coast offense with Andy Reid. And the Indianapolis Colts, who we mentioned earlier, are also going to be going to a West Coast offense. Another team to consider is the Miami Dolphins. Joe Philbin, current head coach of the Dolphins, used to be Greg Jennings' offensive coordinator when the two of them were together in Green Bay and won a Super Bowl together in 2010. So the Dolphins are definitely, I think, the team to keep an eye on for Greg Jennings' services. The third wide receiver to mention here is Mike Wallace. And of all the guys I've mentioned here, Wallace is by far, in my opinion, the most talented. Last year he had a nasty contract dispute with the Steelers. He came in and played, and I think that dispute affected his productivity. Didn't do all that great, 64 catches, 836 yards. He did, however, catch 8 touchdowns, and throughout his career in Pittsburgh, he has averaged 17.2 yards a catch. That is outstanding. He can absolutely take the top off of the defense. Incredible, explosive, big play threat. Teams that I think that are going to be considering Mike Wallace's services are the Cleveland Browns, big time. They have a ton of cap space, and North Turner, who's now the offensive coordinator in Cleveland. He has a vertical offense, and Mike Wallace is ideally suited for a vertical offense. The other team to consider is the New England Patriots. They might let Wes Welker go, but if you let Wes Welker go and get Mike Wallace, you are effectively getting this generation's version of Randy Moss. That is the kind of speed Wallace gives, and you give that kind of speed to Tom Brady. We saw what a fast Randy Moss gave to Tom Brady back in 2007. You give Mike Wallace to Tom Brady, that's very, very, very scary. So I think those are the two teams that are going to probably be in play for Mike Wallace's services. So now we've gone from wide receivers. We're going to go right now to running backs. And the 2 running backs that I think are the top of the free agent crop. Number 1 is AHMAD Bradshaw of the Giants. He was just cut. Bradshaw last year was one of the Giants' more consistent threats on offense outside of Eli Manning. He averaged 4.6 yards a rush, and he ran for over 1,000 yards. And the buyer beware with Bradshaw is he's been getting hurt a lot recently, and that's one of the reasons why the Giants let him go. He had over 1,000 yards this year, but it's only the second time in his career that he's had over 1,000 yards. So he's not really an every down back. He is, however, an outstanding pass blocker in the passing game. So if your quarterback needs somebody to protect him, the running back position, AHMAD Bradshaw is your guy. Another guy to consider is Steven Jackson of the Rams. Now, Steven Jackson, every year, everyone always says, well, Steven Jackson's he's getting older, he's getting slower, he's wearing down. Well, Steven Jackson has missed 2 games since 2009. 2. That is outstanding durability, especially for a guy like Jackson who's consistently fed the football. He's really the only outstanding threat outside of Danny Amendola for the Rams on offense last few years. So with Jackson, you're getting a very, very tough running back. He's run for over 10,000 yards in his career, 4.1 yards per carry, which has been pretty consistent all throughout his career. I think Jackson is ideally suited for a team that is trying to make a Super Bowl run. He would be perfect for a team like the Denver Broncos. You don't quite know what you're going to get next year out of Willis McGahee. Is Noshan Marino really your running back going into the future, Denver fans? Steven Jackson's outstanding in pass coverage, solid guy. He's been in the league since 2004, and he's never played in a playoff game. I think he's due, and I think a team like Denver would be perfect for Steven Jackson's services. So those are the guys on offense. Now we're going to switch to defensive players, and the pass rusher that I'm going to focus on here in the free agent crop is Anthony Spencer of the Dallas Cowboys. He's an outside linebacker, and he's best suited in a 3-4 defense. And 2012 was by far his best season. He had 11 sacks. Now, the buyer beware with Anthony Spencer is that he had never had more than 6 sacks in a season prior to 2012, which just so happened to be a contract year. So you don't quite know if Anthony Spencer was doing all of this extra sackage because, I'm going to get paid, or if he just figured it out and just went out there and had a great year. If you're a team that needs a pass rusher and you're running a 3-4 front or maybe a 3-4 hybrid, and you want a complementary pass rusher or a veteran guy to come in and help your pass rush, Anthony Spencer is absolutely the guy you want to sign. I think 2 teams that are going to be in the running for Spencer's services are the Indianapolis Colts, who need a pass rusher because it looks like they're going to let Dwight Freeney go, and the Seattle Seahawks. Seattle Seahawks really lost something when their pass rushing ability was limited in the playoffs. You take Anthony Spencer and put him on that Seahawks defense. That is a nasty defense already with that secondary. You give them a consistent pass rush from both edges, forget it. I mean, that Colin Kaepernick and the rest of the NFC West will be running for their life if a guy like Anthony Spencer signs with the Seahawks, and it is possible. So look for that to happen. Finally, the guy I'm going to focus on right here with unrestricted free agents is a little bit of an underrated guy named Mike DeVito. Defensive end, nose tackle of the New York Jets. You're not going to hear a lot about Mike DeVito. He's just a very, very solid, highly productive guy who can play both nose tackle and defensive end in a 3-4 front. And he was one of the few bright spots for a very bad and dysfunctional Jets team in 2012. He had 52 combined tackles and a sack from the defensive end nose tackle position. That is outstanding. So if you're a team that's running a 3-4 front or switching to a 3-4 front in 2012 and you need a solid guy in the middle either to be your anchor or to be on the interior, Mike DeVito is definitely your guy. Teams that I think are going to be interested in him are the Cleveland Browns, maybe the Tampa Bay Buccaneers because they're letting Roy Miller potentially go, and the New Orleans Saints. New Orleans Saints just hired Rob Ryan as their defensive coordinator, the guy who really has been the catalyst or the mentor or coach for Mike DeVito, Rex Ryan of the New York Jets. So if there's anybody who knows how good DeVito is, it's the Ryan family. So would not be surprised to see DeVito potentially go to the New Orleans Saints. I'll close this out by talking about one restricted free agent, and that is Victor CRUZ of the New York Giants. CRUZ and the Giants can't seem to figure out on a contract going forward, which makes you wonder, will the Giants release him, or will they allow a team to potentially sign CRUZ as a restricted free agent and then give the Giants draft compensation? Regardless, if nothing has worked out between CRUZ and the Giants, if CRUZ were an unrestricted free agent, he would be at the top of my list. He is an outstanding big play wide receiver. He can play slot, he can play on the outside. If your team needs a wide receiver, you should seriously consider giving up a first-round pick to get Victor CRUZ. He is that good. So those are my top players hitting free agency for the 2013 offseason. Want to know what you think? Subscribe above, comment below. Welcome to the offseason. This is SB Nation.